rise and shine. Pour yourself a cup of coffee and tune in to Good Morning Aurora. News, weather, and really cool interviews. Monday through Friday from 8 to 9 a.m.
Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. Good morning, Aurora. The time is 8 o'clock on the nose. How about that? It is Tuesday, the 9th of August. Good morning to you guys. You are listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. We hope that you're all well, nice, happy, refreshed. Hopefully you got a lot of good sleep last night. Hopefully you went to bed with a good dinner. First of all, just real quick, if you're going to bed hungry, stop that. I know some of you are like, oh, you know what? It's late. I didn't eat. I'm just going to go to sleep. Take it from me. Put a little food in your belly and then go to sleep. Or adjust your schedule. Don't work so much. You know, I was doing that for the longest time. I was just going to work and work. Oh, it's 9 o'clock. I ain't got time to cook. I'm just going to sleep hungry. Don't do that. It affects your well-being, your mental health, all that good stuff. So please get a little food in your belly. But this is not a food show. Not yet. We have a great guest today. Our guest is Lori Baker, President and CEO of AID, the Association for Individual Development, not of. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you this morning, Curtis?
Doing good. Good to see you. Good to see you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you guys are another organization that won the Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Award.
We did. We were very excited about that. AID was in the category Big Business. Which was exciting. We thought that we would be in the nonprofits, since that's what we are, but we have more than 600 employees, so they put us in the big business category, and we were lucky enough to be chosen for the Business Excellence Award in Big Business for the Aurora Regional Chamber of Commerce.
That's now that's something that I didn't know either. 600 employees.
Yeah, we do. We do. We serve 7 counties across the northwestern portion of the great state of Illinois. So our main administrative office is here in Aurora. Okay. That's where we started in 1961.
Wow.
And we also, besides Kane, serve Kendall, DeKalb, McHenry, Northwestern Cook, Western DuPage, and I always say a smidge of Will County because, of course, Aurora is in 4 counties.
That's
so
right.
We serve some people that have an Aurora address, but a Will County address as well, right? So smidge.
Right.
Yeah, that's a precise word. That's a measurement word right there, right?
Oh, I love it. So 1961 is the beginning of AID.
That's right. A group of families came together who had children with disabilities. And at that time, there was nothing for them. The school system did not serve them. And there was nothing for them to do but kind of sit at home. And so these families came together. And this is the way many organizations like AID started across Illinois and really across the nation, is because parents were seeking something for their children to do because they were not allowed into regular school system and they were not supported in any way. And so those 7 families came together and began meeting and created the Association for Individual Development. We just recently, last year, celebrated our 60th anniversary, so we started looking at the archives, and our first budget was $3,500 for the year in 1961, and basically that paid for a teacher for a school for the young people of the families who had disabilities. Then in the early 70s, once the Special Education Act passed, we gave that school
Education Act.
The Special Education Act that required that children with disabilities be served by their local school district. That wasn't a requirement until the early 70s. That's why we started. Once that passed, we gave the school over to the city of Aurora and had already started doing other services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so we just kept doing that and creating residential spaces, places for people to live and work. And then in 1981, we became a community mental health center as well, or CMHC for short, and began providing mental health services and have grown a lot on that side. And I think most people don't really realize that if they know anything about AID, they know about the intellectual and developmental disability services that we do, but they don't necessarily realize that we've been a mental health center since the early 80s and continue to develop and provide support for people with behavioral health diagnoses and develop all kinds of programming around that as well.
At all locations.
At all locations, yeah. We only do our intellectual and developmental disability services in Kane and Kendall County,
Okay.
But we do mental health services in all the other 7 counties that we have some kind of presence in.
You know, Lori, I gotta already, and it's only, holy cow, 8:05. I gotta put a flag in this conversation already because you said something that has just rocked me to the core. I have to be honest with you. Kids with disabled children weren't allowed to go to school in a what Russia? What are we talking? Wait a minute, huh? What was this? Kazakhstan? Are you serious?
Yeah, seriously.
They had to make an act to let kids with disabilities go to school in America?
Yeah.
I didn't know that until you just told. I would have.
Yeah. No, it's surprising when you look back at it and when you think about it. But yes, I mean, that's why many organizations like AID started, was from families coming together, searching for support, education, something for their child to do every day because they just sat at home. They did not get to go to school at 5 years old and go to kindergarten. They weren't included until the early 70s when the Special Education Act passed, and that required that school districts then serve those children.
They had to make an act to allow kids with disabilities to go to school. It will be the most outrageous thing I've heard until I hear something else.
Yeah.
That's it.
I think, if you think back, I mean, that's been a long time ago,
Sure.
And the thinking about the ability or what people can successfully do with disabilities has changed radically in the last 60 years, right? So we didn't think that children with disabilities could learn, that they were able to be around their peers. If you go back even maybe 20 years before that, parents were told when their child was born with an intellectual or developmental disability that they couldn't raise them and they needed to put them in an institution in order for them to have the best support that they would be able to get. And doctors used to tell parents that you won't be able to raise this child. It'll be too stressful. It'll be difficult for your other children. You don't have the keys to do this type of support, right? An institution is the best place for people. And so many people that are on the older age group, 60s, 70s, 80s, that have an intellectual and developmental disability,
Those were those
spent
kids.
time in an institution where it was almost like an orphanage or a home for kids with disabilities, and not their family, but paid staff would raise them.
Scandalized. Okay, now 1981, AID became a CMHC, Community Mental Health Center.
Right.
It seems like that's kind of where AID, I mean, not to omit the history before that,
right,
kind of seems like that's where AID started to really pick up the steam into what it became today. Is that? a fair assessment?
I think that's fair. I mean, we continue to add more places for people to live with intellectual and developmental disabilities, refined and improved employment services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. But we have really, in the past, especially probably 20 years, really grown on the behavioral health side. And that has been the biggest growth factor. And I think the reason for that is that we kind of specialize in supporting all people with disabilities to live and work in their communities of choice, so that they're not set aside somewhere on the edge of town, in the factory district or wherever people don't want to live, right? But
shanty town.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But we assist people in accessing affordable housing across their community, and then providing the supports that they need in order to live there successfully. AID owns 3 apartment buildings here in Aurora, where we support people with behavioral health diagnoses. These apartment buildings are a type of housing that's called supportive housing. And supportive housing is really simply at its base affordable housing plus the services and support, thereby the supportive, that you need as a person with a disability or someone experiencing homelessness, a veteran, a person who's aging, whatever that reason is for support, need that level of support to live in the community successfully. It's your own apartment with your own lease, rights of tenancy, keys. We're not just, we're not walking into your apartment. We're not, we're not controlling where you go or what you do, but providing those supports in your home, access to counseling and therapy, case management, connection with local resources, assisting you through to navigate systems that might be complicated, right? Like the healthcare system, oftentimes that's very complicated for people, and so they may not. And people with a mental illness die on average 20 years younger than the average lifespan of a person without a mental health diagnosis. So that's because there are a lot of co-occurring physical healthcare disorders, and people may not have the ability, as they are working through their mental health diagnoses, to also be able to then traverse and advocate for themselves in the medical field as well. So, that can be part of what we assist people with, just getting your regular doctor's appointments for a physical, right? Understanding what it means, understanding how medications might interact, right, with medications that you're taking for your mental health diagnosis, right? So, kind of those supports that we provide in the community are for anything that is what you want to work towards as the person who is receiving services and supports.
How many people does AID help annually?
So on the behavioral health side and with psychiatric services, last fiscal year 21, we served 2,900 people. We served 1,300 people in what we call community living, which is that support of people with behavioral health diagnosis in the community. And then we serve an additional about 200 people on the intellectual and developmental disability side in community integrated living arrangements, or CILA, CILA.
A lot of acronyms.
Yeah, the world of not-profit is the world of an acronym. So I'm trying to make sure I say them all out, because we have a tendency to slip into them.
Thank you. Yeah.
And not. So please stop me if I say one you don't know. But and we also support people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in their own apartments, which is very rare. Most developmental disability providers do that kind of group home model, that CILA model, the community integrated living arrangement, where it's 4 to 8 people that are not related sharing a home. And we do that, but we also support people in what's called intermittent, which is a really hard word to say, and I have a difficulty with, and I'm really proud that I could say it this early in the morning.
Yeah.
Intermittent SILA, which is less than 24-hour a day supports, right? For people with intellectual and developmental disabilities that live in apartments in the community. And there are very few providers. There's about 500 people across the state that live in ISILA or intermittent SILA, and we support 50 of them. So that's 10% of that group of people. And we continue to try to grow opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live and work just like any of the rest of us do. They're kind of the last disability population that's still kind of encouraged, I was going to say forced, but encouraged to live together, in shared housing with like more than like just a roommate. Like I always had a roommate, right? Whenever I was a young single mom, newly divorced, because you couldn't afford housing, right? Without sharing expenses. So having a roommate is not unusual. Having 4 to 8 roommates, right, is kind of unusual, right, if it's not your family. So we continue to try to open up those opportunities and work with families that are interested in their loved ones, having real opportunity in the community.
Living and working in a community of their choice.
Yeah.
Good morning to all of you great listeners and viewers out there. How y'all doing? Let's see who we have. Shannon Cameron is here. Good morning to you, Shannon. So grateful for all AID does for our community. Valerie, good morning. Jennifer Ryan Mayton, good morning. Tracy Hodges, good morning to you as well. Tom Hebert is here. Good morning, Tom. And Joe Jackson. Joe Jackson says, Lori and everyone at AID, are amazing. They provide so many critical services and advocate for our most vulnerable neighbors. Well, thank you very much for that, Mr. Jackson. We appreciate that. Aisha Saxon, John Schomer are here as well. Time is 8:15. So now I'm curious, if folks are living on their own already and perhaps they have a family member who's concerned for them, I assume they can reach out to AID to meet them and help them with services. But for folks who may be, unhoused, or members of our transient population, so on and so forth, how can they contact, what does that, what's that interaction look like for people who don't have someone to advocate or pick up the phone for them?
Right. So that's a good question. And it was good coming after Joe Jackson, who is the executive director of Hesed House.
He's the man. That's my man. Yes, I love Joe Jackson.
He is a great guy.
Shout out.
And we work with and really partner with Hesed House. And we have some staff members that work there at Hesed House as mental health professionals, supporting people that are coming there. And we do some case management there. So we do some, if you will, call it in-reach, right, into Hesed House to connect with people there. We also have a street outreach team that is awesome. I know you had Lindsay on the show a while back. And so Lindsay and her street outreach crew go to all of the known and unknown places where people are at across Kane County. They concentrate on Aurora and Elgin, but they go anywhere that they find out that people are living outside, and really work on that engagement of people, because oftentimes people are very ill that are living on the streets.
Certainly
don't trust people, other folks, right? And have reason not to, oftentimes. And so it's really important to have that street outreach and engagement, so that people can begin to learn and trust the people that have been there for them, as they're engaging. So it can be a very long process. It can take months. It can take years, but then work with those folks to try to assist them in getting to a point where they're able to come into a better recovery stance for their mental health, right? Access psychiatry, perhaps medications, other pieces that will help them pull their life to a more stable place, and then help them access housing, emergency shelter, permanent housing, supportive housing if
Right.
they need that ongoing services and supports. It's really challenging right now in Kane County for anyone who has a low income to find housing.
Oh, yeah.
Because the vacancy rate in Kane County is less than 1%.
Wow.
And very few people have not taken advantage of being able to increase rents, right? Because the demand is so high.
Right.
And people who have the income are able to pay a rent that is higher than what fair market rent is. And then there are very many, there are landlords that don't want to take a housing choice voucher or a Section 8 voucher, as people call them sometimes, or other rental subsidy, because they'd just rather, get cash from people than deal with the paperwork of dealing with a rental subsidy, having the inspections and the other things that you have to do. And then you get can only receive fair market rent. So that has been a huge challenge. And so, one of the things that AID has been doing is creating affordable housing. So yay. So our big project that we have going on right now is actually in Elgin. So we've got a couple of buildings there that we are have been funded for, which will include a 24-unit permanent supportive housing project and a 50-unit low-income housing tax credit project on
50 units?
50 units. So that's a total of 74 new affordable units in Elgin to be built over the next year or so, we hope. We're going in front of City Council tomorrow night for beginning of the approval process.
Sprinkle some good luck
Yay,
dust.
thank you. And so we are actually also partnering with Joe at Hesed House and Rick Guzman at the Neighbor Project and AID here in Aurora to look at how we could develop some permanent supportive housing here, because as you know, there are upwards of 200 people at times at Hesed House. And so in order for people not to live there, it's great that we have Hesed House. I'm so glad people can be off the street, but you can't live a solid life living out of an emergency shelter, right?
Certainly.
So we would really like to, in partnership with Hesed and the Neighbor Project, look at places where we could develop some more supportive housing here in the city of Aurora to help those folks that are at Hesed House move on and be able to live their life completely in the community, like any of us wants to live, right? Living in an emergency shelter is transient at best, right? So being able to be solid in the community in affordable supportive housing is really important to reducing the amount of people that need to live at Hesed House.
Now I saw this was maybe might have been January or so.
Okay.
I saw that there's two developments that are coming. One was at Lincoln School and Lincoln and Todd School, and then I think Lincoln School and Todd School on the west side. Now they had a similar kind of thing, if I'm not mistaken. The schools have been abandoned or closed for a long time, so they were going to create housing in there, and one of them, I believe, Todd School was going to have VNA services on the inside. Is it something like that?
Yeah,
Is
that's
that
affordable housing. I think those projects are seeking to use the low-income housing tax credits, right, to develop and build the property, rehab the school buildings, and create other buildings on the process. And that funding, that low-income housing tax credits, is a national IRS program that's the biggest creator of affordable housing across the nation. So it's exciting. I believe that the other project that got awarded funding was at Jericho Circle with the Housing Authority of Aurora,
that was like
the Aurora
2 months
Housing
ago.
Authority. Yeah, and they have some property out there beside their administrative office that they receive funding to create and build affordable housing for seniors. So that's a really great project that'll be coming to the area as well.
That'll be only for seniors?
It will be only for seniors. That's senior affordable housing, as far as I understand it. I don't work for the Housing Authority, but I'm pretty positive that's what it was.
Right. This is the AID episode.
It is.
Okay.
We like to shout out our partners, though, because none of us could do the work we do without all the great social service providers that are around the city of Aurora and the county of Kane. So
wonderful. All right. The time is 8:23 a.m. Sandra Morelis, good morning to you. John Schomer. I think it's hi, John Schomer. I think so. Michael Rayford, good morning to you. Michael Rayford Media shouts out. Sally Bice. Sally says, decades ago, I worked with case management with Hesed House. You mentioned important work. Very much so, Sally. Shannon Cameron says, I so appreciate our work with the street team. Lindsay, Yvette Robles, and Elton are incredible, and I so appreciate their dedication and care for all living in the local encampments. Thank you very much for that, Shannon. We do as well. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if people are able to really grasp the situation if they've not seen them, if they've not kind of been there or been acclimated to that kind of thing. Right. You have to have not only tough skin, you really got to be, it takes a special kind of person. It
very much takes a special kind of person to go tramping out in the woods, to go to places that most other folks would find scary or dangerous, and with people who can feel scary and dangerous sometimes, right? If you're not just the best, brightest, most wonderful people in the world. So my career started in social service and homeless services, and so it's kind of where a lot of my heart is at. And so was so excited that we were able to receive some funding from Kane County through the ARPA money and the CARES money to develop our street outreach team and help pay for that. That's been very exciting, and we want to make sure that we can keep doing that. Many of the folks that we are working with in partnership with Hesed and other folks in the community have been able to access from the Aurora Housing Authority emergency housing vouchers, which came through in the CARES Act for people experiencing homelessness during COVID. But again, finding that unit has been very hard that you can actually use the voucher on. But it's a challenging work, vicarious trauma that you carry because people have had very traumatic experiences. That's why they're on the street. There's not, you don't usually have a good story about why you're on the street. It's been a lot, but I think that people would be shocked. Many people work that live on the streets.
Oh yeah.
There are many veterans. Veterans are way higher percentage of veterans in the homeless population than in the general population, which when my son was 10 years old, even he said, well, that's not right. You know, if they, fought for our country, they should have somewhere decent, safe, and affordable to live. And that is true. And the VA is doing more things to try to assist their homeless veterans as well. I really appreciate our street outreach team a lot. I'm excited that we're able to offer that service and opportunity because it takes time. And so, that's money that may seem like, oh, well, you've only housed 3 people, in a year, but, it probably took a year for you to get, somebody to trust you and even sometimes give you their name, right? Or, any personal information about themselves.
The time is 8:27 a.m. You are listening to and watching Good Morning Aurora, the second largest city's first daily news podcast. Our guest today is Lori Baker, President and CEO of AID, the Association for Individual Development. This is the news portion of the show. Deliver this local news. It's also, for those who are watching, it's also the time where we get to sip coffee and chill because we've been talking a lot here. So August 16th, which is next Tuesday, at 11 o'clock a.m., the Illinois General Assembly in City of Aurora will commemorate the late Dan Dolan, community leader, with a street dedication at 11 a.m. The section of Route 31 in Aurora that runs from East Illinois Avenue to Indian Trail Road will be dedicated as Dan Dolan Way. Representative Stephanie Kifowit, shouts out, Marine Corps veteran, said Mr. Dan Dolan was a beloved, respected, and selfless citizen of the city of Aurora, one who dedicated himself to strengthening our community and enriching the lives of local residents. Naming a section of the highway in his honor is a fitting tribute to a man who dedicated so much of his life to the betterment of his community, country, and neighbors. Mr. Dolan, close quote. Mr. Dolan passed away in February of 2020 in Fountain Hills, Arizona, 2 days after his 89th birthday. After spending the majority of his life in Aurora, he served the city of Aurora in many different capacities. He graduated from East Aurora High School in 1949 and served in the United States Navy aboard the USS Knapp destroyer during the Korean War. He worked as a mailman and sold pots and pans on the side before helping to establish Dolan and Murphy Incorporated, an Aurora real estate firm. He was a pillar in his community. For more information, you can call 630-585-1308. He was also proud of his involvement with Aurora Boys Little League Baseball for over 50 years. All right. Next, Aurora Central Catholic High School is pleased to announce that they have a new varsity football head coach and assistant dean, Christian Rago. He is the new head football coach, assistant dean. He brings nearly 10 years of combined college and high school coaching experience to Aurora Central Catholic High School. In his new role, Mr. Rago will lead training sessions, create game plans, direct players during gameplay, and provide one-to-one coaching. As assistant dean, he will lead ACC's advanced fitness class program and aid with the planning, coordination, and administration of other school programs and activity. He says, quote, "It's an honor to join ACC High School's acclaimed athletic network. As head football coach, my mission is to focus on developing the whole person, empowering each student athlete to reach new levels of success, both on and off the field." Aurora Central Catholic High School is a college preparatory school rooted in faith and based in Aurora, Illinois. ACC has been committed to the spiritual formation and education of students in the Fox Valley area and surrounding suburbs for over 50 years. ACC began as two separate secondary schools in 1926, Madonna Catholic High School, an all-girls school, and Roncalli High School, an all-boys school. They merged in 1968 to form a co-educational school, ACC. Today, the community-centered school operates under the direction of the Rockford Diocese. The time is 8:30 a.m. And one more quick piece of news before we get back to our fantastic conversation. Learn about the fantastic FEC, the Aurora Financial Empowerment Center, at the Aurora Public Library on August the 18th at 6 p.m. This will be in person and streamed online online at the Aurora Public Library's Facebook page. This will be held in room 125 of the Santori branch, downtown Aurora. The FEC offers financial coaching free to all Aurorans. All right, shouts out. So I'm curious if you do know, to what degree does substance abuse play a part in what we see and what we're what AID deals with? If that's for the street outreach team, certainly. But I mean, if there's any numbers of that, that'd be helpful. Kind of want to highlight that.
Yeah, substance use treatment is not our specialty, but there has been rising substance use disorder issues, challenges, overdoses, reversals, etc. Right. Across the nation and certainly across our community during COVID. COVID really exacerbated mental health challenges and substance use challenges, that isolation, that trauma, that anxiety, that fear, right? Really, triggered a lot of issues for folks that didn't have a good way to connect to anyone, because you were supposed to stay at home in your house, right, and not be out in the community. Substance use, has grown. Certainly, opioid use. The street outreach team really works to have safe use kits, naloxone, and other overdose altering or overdose fixes, reversal. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Overdose reversal items, in places where people might use them in encampments, right? In areas with the people themselves that are users, because that's who's going to do a reversal, because that's who you're going to be with whenever you're using. But, it certainly exacerbates and makes challenging for folks. It's very difficult to access substance use services because the demand is just so high and the need is just so great. And those providers, just like AID and other not-for-profits, and really everybody anymore, has a huge workforce issue because, people, we have about 80 vacancies at AID out of, 620 positions.
Okay.
So that's a lot, right? That's a pretty high, that's the higher than we have ever had, except for like at the beginning of the year, in January, we had about 120 vacancies. So, and then you pointed out that special person that wants to do a 24-hour day program, like our street outreach, like our community support team that works with people with a mental health diagnosis that are not in recovery, that are not in compliance with their treatment plan, who are homeless and or at risk of homelessness or very precariously housed, that can meet and support that person 24 hours a day, whatever time of day that need is. Our mobile crisis response team, which is a brand new team that we just received a grant for last year from the state of Illinois, the Illinois Department of Human Services Division of Mental Health. And this is a team that will respond to a mental health crisis. So nationally, 988 as an emergency phone number for mental health and suicide crises, right? Just rolled out. And the mobile crisis response team is a group that could respond to a mental health crisis 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That would mean police don't need to go out to a mental health crisis because they are not mental health counselors. And that's where dangerous situations can happen for the police and for the person who is in crisis. And so this is to try to kind of fix that issue, right? And be able to respond to those crisis situations with mental health professionals. And so that's a 24-hour day program, as is our victim services program, where we work in conjunction with police and fire. In some cases in Aurora, we work with the Aurora Police Department and the Aurora Fire Department to respond to a violent crime or a mental health crisis or suicide or homicide situation. So we get called out by the police departments that we have a contract with, and they our staff responds within half an hour to work with the victim of the crime and the witnesses of the crime, so the police can do their job of investigating the crime. And so it's a support, and it's a great support, and it's part of what people mean, I think, when they talk about defunding the police. They talk about putting some money into mental health services is what they really mean.
This is it.
And supports. Yeah, I agree. So all those programs that I just mentioned are all 24-hour day programs. Very hard to get the right person who is willing to work and be called at 2 a.m. in the morning, and or midnight to somebody's house or the street or a viaduct or wherever it is that that person needs support. So not only do we have a challenging time, we also can't do any of the jobs that we have virtually, which everybody wants to work virtually now, right? So you can't support somebody with a disability, with their physical needs, with the support that they need in their apartments, with support, cooking and cleaning and some of those other things, right, from home. So we've had a challenging time hiring, and so do substance use disorder service providers, and so that's making an already difficult issue become more exacerbated by the inability to have enough staff to deliver the service that is required. And we certainly need to be able to ramp up the service, right? All of us, because the needs keep expanding. The mental health needs of people in our community, children, people with disabilities, veterans, seniors, everybody's mental health has been affected by COVID-19 and the world at large right now, right? There's all kinds of things that are very upsetting and confusing, angering, happening. There's war, there's, discord amongst our politicians, there's there's high prices, there's inflation, there's, so there's all kinds of things. Fear of, not knowing how to handle, is this going to be our world from now on in terms of health and mask and, all those kinds of things that people are unsure. When do I need to get a shot? All those things have really harmed people's mental health. And instead of being able to ramp up services to meet those higher needs, we're scrambling to try to just meet the people and serve the people that we're currently serving, because workforce issues is challenging to hire people.
I'm curious, and you mentioned the issues that folks may have been experiencing being exacerbated by COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know, when COVID came, what was the pivot like for an organization like AID? So what was, the day and the moment and the time, if you recall, if you can take us to that, what was that like?
I remember distinctly. It was the 13th of March, because it was a Friday.
Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
The day that all good things happen, right?
It was the day that we decided with our board and executive leadership that we were going to close our community day services, which we served about 600 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities in our various community day service programs. But they were programs where groups of people came together,
right,
and that was not going to be safe. So we made that decision. And then that next Monday, the state officially closed community day services. So we were like a little bit ahead of the curve,
right,
and had the plan. But, we very quickly pivoted. Some people took their loved ones home from community integrated living arrangements. And we downsized and combined some of those homes, right, to try to combine resources, because the hardest thing for us was trying to feed people. About 168 people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, plus their staff, every day. When we used to go, each home went to the grocery store by themselves. You couldn't go to the grocery store like that, right?
Right.
And if you went, you could get 2 jars of spaghetti sauce, right?
Right.
You had limits, and you were feeding 168 plus people every day. So we, had to really deploy all kinds of staff to, go out and search. I can remember I have a Sam's Club membership, so I went to all the metropolitan Sam's Clubs that I could hit, right, to see if I could just get eggs,
right,
or bread, or whatever it is that we couldn't find, and then we started ordering things, when Instacart and all those things started, really popping up. But then that added huge expense,
right,
because you had to pay all those fees and all the pieces that wasn't in our budget. We closed down. We didn't ever close down our community mental health center, but we did send some staff home to do telehealth and telemental health with people. There are some people that works for. The vast majority of people we support, that doesn't really work for. So we continue to see people in the community. We had to, we met every day. I mean, this is never going out of my head. We met every day as an executive leadership team to make decisions that day of what we needed to add to our practices, what, sanitation, disinfecting, trying to order things, trying to get things just like everyone, we couldn't get that. And there wasn't anyone that was really helping, but the community really stepped up. People started making masks and bringing them to us and donating them. We had, people that reached out and wanted to deliver lunch to people that were, critical workers and still working. And so, we, I can remember driving to work every day, and, it was like the zombie apocalypse. You were waiting for the zombies to come down the street. It was just so like surreal. There was no one on the street, and we had letters from AID given to each staff member so that they could show a police person if they stopped them, that they were a critical worker, and needed to, an essential worker, and needed to be going to the homes. But, most of our folks with disabilities didn't leave their home. Their parents weren't allowed to come and see them, right? For, months and months and months and months.
Right.
So, it was very difficult for them too, because many people with intellectual and developmental disabilities are very attached to routine, right? Their routine, and the routine was totally disrupted, right? Nothing was the same as it had been. And that was very challenging for folks to try to understand and figure out. And they are very good self-advocates and, asking for what they want and need. And so, trying to help people understand that none of us were able to do many of the things that we wanted to, and most of us didn't get all the food that we wanted or needed, right? I can remember, I have a picture on my phone still of Aldi's meat shelf empty, not one thing in it. And so, those were the struggles that we had, but we needed, we really had to pivot about, maybe we wouldn't go in someone's apartment, but maybe we would leave things on their door, like on the mental health side, like what do you need? Do a little care package and hang it on their door so that you weren't, face to face. And, when you couldn't get, when we didn't know if it was from touch or not, and all the things, it was very difficult, man. It was rough. It was rough, but you kind of just did it because you had to, and had to figure it out. But, I really can't say enough how proud I am of our staff and the people that kept coming every day, kept supporting the people that needed that support, that couldn't just say, we'll talk to you in a week, right? Because those people that need that ongoing physical support, mental health support, support with activities of daily living, all of those things, we couldn't just leave, for a week or a month or a year, right? I had to keep going. So the AID staff, shout out, are the best in the world, and we really, really appreciate them. We understand that they're our greatest asset. We don't make stuff, right? We don't put together widgets. So our greatest asset is the people who do the caring and support and facilitation for the people that we serve.
Absolutely. That's right. Yep. We're not making little trinkets. No, we're doing the work with people. Okay, the time is 8:46 a.m. Quick news items, and then we'll get back to some more of our discussion here. So, ladies and gentlemen, this Friday there's going to be a great back-to-school health and resource fair at VNA Healthcare, 400 North Highland Avenue. The Neighbor Project will be there. This will take place from 1 to 3 p.m., sponsored by Aetna Better Health of Illinois. There will be resources of all kinds, health screenings, and much more. For more information, you can call 866-329-4701 with any questions. Saturday, September 25th from 9:30 to 11:30 a.m., there will be a Kane County expungement clinic hosted by the Office of the Kane County State's Attorney and the Kane County Circuit Clerk. Registration is required, and this will take place at Gale Borden Public Library in Elgin. Staff from the Circuit Clerk's office will be on hand to answer questions and for assistance. For more information, You can contact the Office of the Circuit Clerk at the email and phone number listed on the flyer. So you gotta scroll down. Yeah, that's right. We'll do it after the show. Okay. October 16th, Marie Wilkinson's Food Pantry is hosting their Fill the Bowls event at Gaslight Manor. This will be from 1 to 4 p.m. and it'll be a lot of fun. Raffles, a wine pool, live music, and great company. For more information or to purchase tickets, visit Marie Wilkinson's website. This is another flyer with all the details and the links for all of you folks. We've posted this on our LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. And once again, your hashtags for local Aurora news at all times are hashtag Aurora News and hashtag Aurora Media. The time is 8:48 a.m. All right, last but not least, Saturday, September 10th will be the Kids Expo, taking place at Phillips Park. This is hosted by State Representative Stephanie Kifowit and will be held from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is a free and fun event open to the public and will be held rain or shine. For more information, call 630-585-1308. Bring the family out for a good time. We hope to see you there. Tamara Smith, Monica Bells, Emily, Alvin Soto, retired APD, shout out, and Tracy Duran, good morning to you as well, and Maria Vasquez. Happy Tuesday right back at you. And Susan Tyrell, good morning to you as well. Okay, 8:49. Yikes, time goes by quick when we're doing this kind of stuff. All right, what is on the horizon for AID? What's the next couple of years look like for AID? What do we got? I mean, we got the affordable housing projects. That's huge initiative. Shout out to the city of Elgin. 74 units coming soon. You're going to the city council
Wednesday,
tomorrow night. So that's in the that's bubbling under the pot. But what else? What else we got?
So we also have a property that we're under construction right now in West Chicago, a 24-unit permanent supportive housing project. Okay. So that project is going to be opening in the fall. We have online waiting lists. If you look at our aidcares.org website, you can get a link and get on the waiting list. That's permanent supportive housing. So you need to have some reason that you need ongoing support and be income eligible for those units. So we're excited about opening those. Most recently, we just got a brand new R3 grant, which is Restore, Renew, Reinvest grant from the Illinois Criminal Justice Information Authority. ICJA.
I know them.
Yeah.
I used to do work with them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Shout out. Oh, you work with the.
We are trying to do a lot of stuff, but this grant is good use of cannabis money. And so we are working with the Illinois Department of Corrections for census tract areas. Happens to be right where our administrative office is at 309 New Indian Trail Court. That census tract is a very high sentencing, high return track for the Department of Corrections.
Right.
And so we're working with people, concentrating on people with disabilities who will be coming out of corrections, returning home. And we have some money in that grant to do emergency housing, as well as ongoing case management, mental health support, and employment services for up to 25 people that we are working with. So we are hiring right now for that team of people. So if anybody has a burning desire to work with returning citizens, one of my favorite populations, because folks really want to change their lives, and we don't give them the opportunity enough in our society, even though we say that you've paid your debt. All those things are still held against you in employment, in job, in accessing housing, et cetera, right? So, I'm really excited that we just got this grant. This was going in our new Crisis and Outreach Services Department, which used to be underneath our Mental Health Department. We have a new Vice President of Crisis and Outreach Services, Kim Buckheister. Congratulations. Kim has been with the organization for about 16 years and was director of crisis and outreach. But these services, that include street outreach, CST, our victim services, our APD social work, our work with reentry population from the jail. We have a contract for that, and treatment alternative court TAC, and now this R3 grant and our mobile crisis response, which are our two newest grants that are working towards meeting a specific need in our community for mobile crisis response, and then now for people returning from the Department of Corrections to get solid and stable and the support that they need to get their lives where they want them to be when they return from having served time in the Department of Corrections.
Right. And to be clear, the work I did with ICJIA was grant reviewing.
Yeah.
It was awesome for violence interruption programs in the city of Chicago. 2 rounds kind of thing with that.
Yeah. So we've been getting ICJIA money for a long time for our crisis line, which I want to put that number out there.
Absolutely.
We have the crisis line of the Fox River Valley is also underneath our crisis and outreach services department. And we've been running this line for more than 15 years. And you can call any time of the day or night at 630-966 9393. That's 630-966-9393. Or if you'd rather text and talk to somebody, you can text at 833 AID text or 833-243-8398. And though that crisis line is the conduit to many of those other services as well that are crisis 24-hour-a-day services. So people can call anywhere we get people that call from other states even, and talk to a trained professional, talk about their anxiety, their depression, their substance use, their difficult home situation, their school, anything, right? That is that they're upset and worried about, and we will answer that phone 24 hours a day, and hopefully, help people alleviate. Oftentimes, it's just to talk to someone else is helpful, right? And or then we can offer referrals or other information, offer to connect them to services if they're interested in that, and or that's where somebody could call if they think they need mobile crisis response, or if there are any other if there's somewhere that there might be a new person who is like camping outside or doing something, and to let the street outreach team know. It's just a really good way to connect to someone, be able to talk, and then they can kind of divert and do whatever they need with that information in order to try to assist the person or assist the situation.
Wonderful. The show time is 8:55. The show ends on a positive note. What is your message to the people of Aurora today?
So my word for the year has been grace. And part of that is because we have all been through such a difficult time through the past couple of years, and we're most hard on ourselves. And I think that we all need to give ourselves grace and give other people grace, because we don't know what anyone is going through. And oftentimes we expect ourselves not to have any challenges, to be able to handle all of life's difficulties without any, without any issue. And that's just not real, and it's just not accurate. So positively speaking, I think we need to give ourselves and other people grace. Don't say that, sharp word that you might have been going to say when someone annoyed you, because they could be having, a way worse day than you. So the positive word of the day is grace. Give a little bit of grace to yourself, especially, and to others.
That's a great Great word. Great word. This has been a fantastic episode. We appreciate you very much for coming on to the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another special episode at 10 a.m. That will start with the last of our recipients of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce Business Excellence Award. Healthcare Solutions, I believe is the name of it. So tune in once again at 10 o'clock a.m. Tell your boss, put in your PTO right now and get ready for another great episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having us.
Absolutely.
And, we would be happy to come back anytime and talk.
Oh, yeah. AID is, you guys are definitely friends of the show. Ladies and gentlemen, have a blessed rest of this day. Take care of yourself and each other. Thank you.